Hi, I'm Jane and welcome back. So today we are going to spend a little bit of time going over credit, right? Credit can be an amazing friend or it can be a terrible, horrible, very bad day that just keeps going, right? Credit should be an amazing thing. You want credit on your side, not against you, okay? And I think for a lot of people, it's just a little bit of a mystery, right? How credit works, why some things affect it more than others. And so I'm hoping that we're going to help clear up some of that mystery here because it really doesn't have to be that much of a mystery. I'm not going to get into super nitty gritty, but I think some of these concepts will help you navigate your credit and hopefully improve your credit score, okay? It really doesn't take a lot to increase your credit or raise your credit score. And that being said, it really doesn't take a lot to drop your score and cause it to plummet, okay? But hope, to give you hope, if your credit score is low, again, it doesn't take a lot to raise it, okay? Because when it comes to credit, one of the things they want to know is how long is your history, right? Because this is how they're going to determine things about you. They want to know how long have you had history, okay? Did you just open up your first credit card 1 month ago and therefore your credit history is a baby, right? It's 1 month old. They can't really tell that much about you with 1 month. And so therefore, because that's such a short history, more things are going to affect your credit more strongly, right? Because there are 3 credit bureaus. One is TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And maybe part of the mystery comes from the 3 bureaus actually weight different things and they measure things differently, which is why there's probably a lot of like, oh no, this is what's important. Oh no, this is what's important. It kind of depends on which bureau, right? So as long as most of your things are in line, it doesn't really matter what gets weighted more or not, okay? So the shorter your credit history, the more if you miss a payment or the more the other things that we're talking about, it can affect it negatively because it's more heavily weighted because your history is so short. You can't do anything about it, right? Because you just opened it. So the next thing that people, the credit bureaus look at is what are your balances compared to your credit limit, right? Meaning how much do you owe versus how much are you allowed to owe. So do you have a credit limit of $5,000 and you owe $4,998? That doesn't look good. It looks like you're stretched, like the straw that broke the camel's back, right? It looks like you're just just one thing can happen and it's game over, and that doesn't look good, right? So if you have a $5,000 credit line, but you only owe $1,000, that looks better. It looks like you have room to breathe, which literally you have room to breathe, right? They say you want to spend between 30 and 50% on your balance. Like if you have a $5,000 credit line, you don't really want to exceed $2,500. And the balances thing for them, I mean, this is going to sound kind of harsh, but don't buy something that you can't pay at the end of the month when it comes time for your statement to be due. Credit is there and it's great and it's wonderful, but stop it. Don't buy what you can't pay. You think you're getting a deal, right? Because on that couch or on that shirt or on those shoes, right? But that $100 pair of shoes or whatever it is that you bought, if you're paying 23% interest, was it really a deal? Was it worth it? And if you are still paying on this balance 6 months from now and it's just sitting somewhere in your closet, right? Like, think about what that was really worth to you, okay? So yeah, okay, payment history is something else that they're gonna track. So do you make your payments on time? And it really doesn't report late or negatively on your credit if you're like 2 days late, right? You have to pay a fee, but it doesn't report negatively. When it starts to report is 30 days later, 60 days later, 90 days later, and again, it's more heavily weighted if you're 60 days late versus 30 days late, if you're 90 days late versus 60 days late, right? It's just going to be more heavily weighted against you. Like, it's going to have a more negative impact on your score, okay? When we had $80,000 of credit card debt, and I said it in a previous video, we didn't get in debt just because we bought a bunch of stuff. We tried real estate investing, and real estate investing is amazing and wonderful, but probably what we were doing was more real estate speculating, right? Because we didn't know as much as we should have going into it, right? But when we owed all of that, we still made our payments, right? Minimum payments at the time, because we couldn't afford to pay the whole thing. But I mean, we rented out 3 out of 4 bedrooms in our house to strangers on Craigslist, okay, to help pay our mortgage, to help pay these bills. But please never miss a payment. You should be on auto pay. I know life happens and we all get bogged down because we are running as soon as we get up. But you should just be on auto pay, at least for the minimum, and then pay your balance off before, you know, you start to accrue interest. We literally lived off of peanut butter and jelly and ramen. I'm Korean, we call it ramyeon, but I don't think you guys would know what that is if I said that. So, but we lived off of peanut butter and jelly and ramen and spaghetti for I don't know how long, because carbs are cheap, okay? So we lived off of that until we actually did have some breathing room, until we basically pretty much paid off the credit cards, right? So if you can't pay for it, don't buy it. Don't get sucked into the I want it now, right? Because you're going to pay for it over and over and over again with interest. If you're young and you don't have credit and you're thinking, how do I get credit if I don't have credit? Kind of like when you're going to look for a job, right? Yeah, everything looks good, but we want you to have experience before we hire you. So how am I supposed to get the experience if you can't hire, if you won't hire me? You know, so but if you're young and you just don't have any credit, then go to your bank and hopefully you have a checking account, right? And ask them. I think it's basically called a secured card, right? It's like a debit card. Your credit line, if you have $300 in your checking account, then your credit line is going to be $300, right? And buy a tank of gas for like $20 or $40, and then just pay it off at the end of the month, and that's it. Just do that until you establish credit. Make sure that when you apply for the card, you ask the person at the bank, hey, is this going to report on my credit report? Because that's the reason why you're doing it, right? So do that for 6 months, and then apply for a different card, or see if you can get a higher balance, you know, and then put $100 on it. And that's how you're going to build. I know it doesn't sound exotic or crazy or anything like that, but this is going to help you build your house, your financial house, right? One brick at a time, literally. All right. So common falsehoods when it comes to credit. Like, these are common things that people, it just keeps perpetuating, right? It doesn't matter how many credit cards you have, right? It's not going to lower your credit. I have like 23 credit cards because I really like points. I really, probably a little too much, but I like the points that I can accumulate. But I have extremely low balances and I always pay off my card every month. And so I have really great credit. Having multiple cards does not lower your credit. It doesn't kill your credit if someone pulls it. People freak out. Are you going to pull my credit? You know, it's not going to ruin your credit. It may drop at a couple points if you have like multiple people pulling it, but if you've got good credit, it's going to go right back to where it was a month later, right? It's not going to affect your score. I don't close any of my credit cards. There's a lot of cards that I don't use anymore, but I still have them and I keep them open because that contributes to my credit history, right? So the oldest card that I had since I was a teenager, it's still open because it's my longest card. It shows that I've had credit for a really long time. And for you parents out there, if you want to, you can open a card with your kid as an authorized user, right? You don't have to give the card to your kid, but you can do that. And then you can establish history for them. And this is assuming that you've got good credit, right? Don't do that to your kid if you don't have good credit, because then you're just going to start them with bad credit, okay? If your credit is messed up, right? If it's a 540 or whatever, pull a free credit report at annualcreditreport.com. You don't have to pay for it, right? You just pull it and then read what's on there. What on earth is affecting your credit, okay? Sometimes I've seen people's credit reports and they have like random $123 in collections for something, or $82 or something like that. And if that's the situation that you're in, for the love of God, right? Like, just pay that off. If it's not a huge thing, then just pay it. And then it's going to affect your score less and less. In 6 months, my gosh, your score can go up like 100 points. And it's just this little tiny thing. It's like if you had a speck in your eye. It's this little tiny speck, but it's driving you insane. All right. And that's what that $82 in collections is doing to your credit. It is driving you and your credit score insane. One of the things that you should do with your money is invest and save. But if you have $4,000 or $40,000 or whatever you do in credit card debt that's growing against you at 18% interest, you can't out invest 18% interest. You can't. That's a topic for a different video. Should I invest? Should I save? Or should I pay off debt? But yeah, you can't out earn 18% interest. Your credit determines if you can buy a car at 0% interest or at 8% interest. It can determine one of the biggest purchases that most of us will make in our lifetimes, which is our mortgage, right? Or if you have multiple mortgages because you're buying real estate, it can determine if you pass a security clearance or not for a job. It can determine so many things, and it is really a simple thing that should not be a mystery. It should not be. So I hope that this video helped clear up some falsehoods when it comes to credit. I hope that this helped you see that it can be super easy to repair your credit. And I hope that this helps you take one more step towards financial literacy and financial freedom. Thank you so much for joining.